look at yourself, because every single one of you out there listening has a lot to offer. You sometimes you don't see it that way, but you really do. And so you got to look at every single little advantage that you can use, and you can turn those little advantages into big advantages, right? That could be your competitive advantage, ultimately, but there's a value that you can add. Definitely. You just got to dig a little deeper sometimes, and just sometimes they're right in front of you. You just look right past them.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey, our sponsor for the show today is Pine Financial Group, the leader in hard money lending in Colorado and Minnesota, and they were recently approved to offer their investment publicly. This investment offer is only for investors in Colorado and Minnesota, and is only made through their investment prospectus. Get your copy today. Simply visit www.pineinvestments.com and click to get started. Look, there's a reason why some of the wealthiest people in history invest in loans backed by real estate. Learn more about the risks and returns at www.pineinvestments.com. Hello, and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me today, I'm excited to have Juan Vargas. How are you doing today?
Hey, Todd, it's a pleasure to be on your show. I really do appreciate it. And, I'm excited. So let's get it rolling.
All right. Well, appreciate you coming on, and you are with Gen Wealth Capital Group. Why don't you give our listeners a little bit more about your background, kind of what you're doing today and what your company is all about?
Yeah. So my background has actually nothing to do with real estate. My professional background, I guess, at least. I was with BMW on the service side. I was with BMW. I did that for several years. But just like any other job, you become good at what you do. And that's both a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing, because it's a skill set position. The better you become at it, the more tied you are to it, right? So for me, I have 3 boys, and so I wanted to spend more time with them, but being at W-2 job, it just really, really was tough for me to be able to spend those extra times and with them. So I started looking into different ways to kind of expand and create a passive income stream, and real estate was one of those things that kept popping up for me. Real estate. And then shortly after that, I got a couple single family homes, and then I was vacant on one of my houses. And that's when I had the big aha moment, because I had to pay for the expenses. I had to pay for the mortgage, the utilities, and all that good stuff. And, I came to realize at that moment that, hey, it's one house, so it's one tenant. So therefore, if that one tenant leaves, then I'm 100% vacant, and then I kind of, compared that to like multifamily. Man, just having a 10 unit and one guy down, I'm still 90% occupied, So that was like my trigger moment, my moment where I was like, you know what, I think this multifamily thing is really where I want to go to, instead of doing the single family like this whole time, and that's when I, looked into multifamily, shortly after that. Yeah. And that was in 2016 when I acquired my first multifamily property.
Okay. And what kind of multifamily were you buying in 2016?
So that was my first one. So I had, a couple of single family houses.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved, in real estate for actually several years, through my dad, because my dad had rental houses, but my dad always kind of did things the wrong way. He was always the guy that, the guy that purchased the house, but he was also the guy that was underneath the sink, doing the plumbing repairs and all that.
Yep.
And so he did it all, which was, it was good to learn, to get your hands dirty and all those kind of things, but it's hard to skill that, right? It's very hard to skill it. And, and for me, I wanted to have a little bit more scalability, that's why, multifamily was my way to do that.
Okay. What, so right now you're in multifamily. Are you doing mid-sized buildings, large buildings, really large buildings? What kind of business model do you guys have right now?
Yeah. So after that 32 unit, we decided to start looking at larger buildings. I think the smaller ones are good buildings. The downside is that, if, you can have a lot of your eggs in that one basket, and,
Mm-hmm.
it's for me, in my opinion, it was better to kind of do a little bit more diversification, take some of that capital and, have it in different, larger size deals. And so the deals that we look for are more like in the 150 unit and above range. Something, 10 million and above acquisition price is kind of what we look for. In markets, that are, primary markets, like Texas markets. So Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio are the markets that we try to target. We also have a property right now that's not in one of those markets. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. It's the property that we have under contract. That's 200 plus units. So we try to, focus on the little bit larger. I would say like the mid-sized type of assets.
Cool. And are you guys? How are you getting capital? Are you syndicating those, or what are you doing to bring in the money?
Yeah, good question. So we are syndicators. So we do, pull the money together and bring in investors. Obviously you have, your lender, they're bringing 70 to 80% of the capital, and we're bringing the equity, which is the other 20 to 30%. And so yeah, these are syndicated properties. The very first 32 unit that I did originally, that was more of myself and a partner. We didn't bring any investors into that one, but yeah, all these larger ones, yeah, we syndicate these.
And are you still with BMW, or are you no longer with them?
Yeah. So it was a tough decision for me, but I ended up leaving. It was a decision to where, I enjoyed what I did. I really did. It was fun. Great group of guys, but at the same time, I guess my thought process then was, hey, these guys, I try to get these guys like involved in real estate. Like, hey, I'll try to give them like and tell them about the benefits that there are with real estate, or just creating their own business, or something like that, right? But they were so like deep focused on just kind of focusing on that only and being there, and so that was one of those things where it really is true. Like the 5 people that you hang around the most with, that those kind of thoughts kind of started going throughout my head and my mind, and those guys, they were content being there, and if I was going to stay there, then I was most likely going to be there too, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So that was one of the reasons, but also because, this business requires a lot of your time, right? It requires a lot of time. And so like when you're calling brokers, when you're calling you're having calls with a property manager, which I'll be having a call here like in an hour, to talk about one of the properties, how things are going. But whenever you're talking to these, they're not available after 5. Whenever you have your W-2 job, you're available after 5 or 6, and but they're not available, and so it's one of those things like, for me, it was a right decision because it was easier for me to focus on this and to make it grow, allow it to grow, right? So that was my decision there.
Especially when you're in the middle of like an acquisition. I mean, that's like, holy cow, having a full-time job, that's difficult to be in the middle of a big acquisition that you're doing a large capital raise on and all that kind of stuff, and then be doing a full-time job. I can't imagine doing that.
It is. You're right. I mean, I think that, it definitely can be accomplished. So like if you're listening out there and you want to do your own deal while you're working your W-2 job, or you want to be part of a deal, then that's definitely achievable. Like for sure, there's people that have done it and they continue their W-2 job, and they're hustlers like on the side, right? So they make it happen, right? And so I don't want to like tell anybody out there or make you guys believe that it's not achievable, because it totally is 100%. But at the same time, it just becomes easier, to focus on those things, because you're doing those things. You're raising capital. You're dealing with the lender. You're dealing with the property manager, the title company. You're dealing with all these different things on the acquisition side. Then the operational side is totally different, because it still requires your time. But yeah, you just got to see what is best for you, what fits best for your situation.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. And one of the things I think is, if you got the full-time job or another business and you're trying to do this, and it is a lot of work, like you just said, but one of the benefits of having that is it helps you create a lot of systems. If you're going to do it, you're going to have to create some systems and processes. You're going to have to get your efficiency down, and you're likely going to have to bring other people in, whether it's partners or team members, and all that is actually positives. In the end, it really helps you think about the business as a whole. So actually starting with a full-time job is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not. And I mean, if you think about it, I just had a conversation like with a dentist this past weekend. So I hold have a meetup, right? I host a meetup. So my meetup was this past Saturday, and she was talking about how she was on a plane ride, and she was listening to Robert Kiyosaki's like Rich Dad radio show, like on it's a podcast, right? So she was listening to that, and then Robert was calling out like the dentists and the doctors and how they're self-employed pretty much, and that they are their business, right? They require a lot of their time.
Yeah.
So she took that to heart. She was like, man, he's talking to me. He's talking directly to me, And then so she was telling me that story, but then we also talked about the fact that, hey, you're the fact that you went to school, you spent all that time, and then you have a career, and you're doing that is the reason why you have the ability to invest in several deals, because it's giving you the capital, right, to be able to, the flexibility to be able to do that. Because the reality is, this business requires capital, right? It is not single family where you can do some no money down type of deals. Now there are some instances even in multifamily where you can be creative and maybe do a 10%, or maybe the seller will carry back portion of the loan. There's definitely instances like that, but there are fewer and fewer instances where you come across that, right? But going back to the story, she was just at the same time grateful that she had her W-2 job, where she had enough capital to be able to invest in some deals and also, KP on some deals and be a general partner, right? So it's definitely, as I said, you got to look at it from your viewpoint and see what's best,
Yeah, and it, good point. And I talk to a lot of people that actually like their job. They like what they do. They don't want to quit their job, especially as a lot of my passive investors. There's still other ways to get involved. It doesn't mean you have to quit your job just to get involved. So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. But like you said, it takes a lot of money. It's a capital intensive business. And people, I hear people ask me all the time, they want to put this 150 unit under contract like what you buy. And they don't have any money, and they're wondering how they can do it, and they're always want to do it on their own, and they're assuming they can just raise the money and not put any money down, when reality is it takes a lot of money just up front. You've got your earnest money, you've got your due diligence money, and in order to get a loan, you have to have money. You have to have a bank account.
That's the reality, and that's why your job, that's where it comes in. That's where it is very important to if you are starting out, I think it's very important for you to keep your job until you for sure know that you can leave and you're ready to go. You're gonna know when the right time is for you. But you're right. It definitely is a capital intensive business. From earnest money to lender fees, application fees, everything, CapEx. There's everything, so it definitely does take a lot of CapEx, a lot of capital to put these deals together.
So take me through this kind of mind shift, because you were a W-2, you're enjoying your job. Take me through the mind shift. Why did you decide to start buying these rental properties? And ultimately, when you quit your job, just kind of take me through that process.
Yeah. So, for me, it was, I wanted to have more time for my family, right? So, that's why, real estate even popped into my head in the first place, right? I thought about what my dad did. He was in real estate and it went well for him. And so then for me, I was like, what, let me do what he's doing. But just don't do everything myself like he was doing, right? And, during that process, I acquired my 32 unit shortly after those couple houses. And, even then I still had my W-2 job. But it wasn't until I started to acquire more properties that I felt that, hey, maybe this is a good time for me to make a jump. And you know, to be honest with you, you know, I wasn't I hadn't replaced my income entirely at that point. You know, I was maybe, you know, 50 to 60% there. You know, but it was more because you know, I felt that I could. It was a good opportunity for me to focus on the business instead of, you know, being there to where, hey, you know, I felt that I was going to be, you know, stepping over dimes to pick up nickels, or however that phrase is, you know, stepping over dollars to pick up nickels. And so that was, you know, my mindset, I guess, at that point. And also, as I said earlier, you know, it's the people that you're with, right? You know, in this space, I think the majority of the people are you know, they think, you know, kind of the same, right? They, you know, we think big, we think, you know, huge, and we're able to help each other out. We're always, you know, lending, you know, our arm out and extending our arm out to help each other out. And that type of business, you know, you're an employee, and it's a totally different mindset, you know. And you know, for me, I just wanted to get out of that, you know, and it was kind of dragging me down at the same time. Even though I love what I did and I enjoyed, I wouldn't say I loved it, but I enjoyed what I did. It's a totally different mindset, you know, because of the people that you're around, you know. And so yeah, those combination of things, you know, and just be able to grow it and be able to spend more time with the family is really the main trigger point of it all, you know.
And so did you go from your 32 unit to then doing a syndication? Was that the next step?
So I actually, my very second deal after that was through, it was a passive investment deal, right?
Okay.
It was a passive investment deal, and I had an IRA, and I was like, you know what? Let me see what this passive investing is. That's when I started to learn about that, right? I was like, you know, let me see what this is about. I'll put this, you know, IRA to work, and, you know, let me check it out. And so I did that, right? So that was actually a deal that, you know, I put in the capital. It was a refi about, I would say 14 months later. It was a refi. We got 84% of the capital back, you know, stayed in the deal, same percentage of equity. So it ended up being like a really, really good deal, you know. But you know, after that second deal, it was a 265 unit that, you know, I was a co-sponsor on. And you know, GP, and we invest, you know, money into our own deals as well. So, and then, you know, I did two other passive deals, and then two other syndicated deals, and then another passive. So it's just been four altogether. It's been four passives, four GPs, not including the 32 unit deal that I first started with.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. So let's talk about some of the business side and where you've been successful. Maybe give us some advice, maybe three key things that you've found allow you to run your business successfully.
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost, you know, you're going to hear this a lot, but it's the reason why you're going to hear it a lot is because it's so true. Is teams, right? You know, if you cannot do this business without a strong team, you just cannot. If you think you're going to do it yourself, then yeah, it's achievable, but you're not going to go very far, you know. And there's this quote that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, you know. And I believe in that, you know, and having a team is to me is very crucial and critical, right? So, surround yourself around guys that complement your skill sets, right? So that's number one. And I guess another thing is to make sure to have, you know, systems in place to where like, you know, if you're going to be running a business like this, then you're going to have some sort of like CRM, to where you can, you know, track your database, you know, those kind of things, right? Have a CRM, have a system to where you know who your investors are, who, when you communicate with people, you know, the last time you did something, you know, just those kind of things, right? CRM. I would say a third thing apart from that is, let me see, what else? A third thing apart from that is yeah, you know, have a good investor database as well, you know, and that's, you know, being able to have a presence out there in the space, you know, like for myself, I have a meetup, you know, and that allows me to meet a lot of new people. And, you know, I have a podcast, you know, kind of like, you know, like yours, Todd. And so that also allows me to connect with people. So I think you have to have some kind of, thought leadership platform, that's through a meetup or, get out there and do a speaking event. You're having a conference here coming up in September, if you were somebody that really wanted to kind of like lift yourself up a little bit, and maybe reach out to somebody like Todd and hey, maybe have a speaking opportunity in his conference, that kind of lifts you up a little bit, where people, they go up to you and see you as a thought leader, so to speak. But you have to get involved in those kind of things, and it all takes getting out of your comfort zone and putting yourself out there. But something like to where Todd is doing, like as I said, with his conference, I think that's really, really big. That's huge. So one of the things that I'm doing as well is, I have a English speaking podcast, but I'm also fluent in Spanish. So I'm also launching one that'll be launching this week. I've been saying that's going to launch this week, but this week is really the week that's going to happen. It's in Spanish, right? So I'm doing it with another buddy of mine, and we're going to be doing it on commercial real estate. It's going to be also with a focus in multifamily, but it's going to be all in Spanish. So every single guest that we interview is they're going to be speaking in Spanish. Every professional that we interview is going to be Spanish. And so this allows us to target like the Hispanic demographic, the Latin community, and it allows us to build a better connection with those guys. So if you are listening to the podcast and maybe you're I don't know, you speak some kind of European language, or Japanese or whatever, if you're good at that, right, and you're fluent at in your language, then I think it'll be a good idea to maybe create some kind of thought leadership platform, and maybe target your community, right? You're Indian, you speak your language, to do that, do those kind of things. I think it's huge, and there's a big hole there. There's not a lot of there's a lot in English, but there's not a lot of in other languages, I would say.
Yeah. So find the gaps, find what's missing and fill those gaps, figure out your niche. I mean, you've got a unique, ability to be able to speak both English and Spanish fluently. There are others that can do that, but my guess is in the multifamily world, and your specialty, that's a really small percentage of people that can do that and speak fluently in both languages. So you've got something that you can give to people that really want it. Same thing with people that can speak really any other language.
Right.
And I tell females this all the time is females, it's like, look, you've got some disadvantages because you're female. Some males just won't take you as serious, but you also have some major advantages. And one of the biggest advantage you have is that you're a female and you can talk to other females and they feel way more comfortable with you. They can connect with you just because they're female. You'll be able to connect to Spanish speaking people because you speak fluent Spanish. And it's just that much more powerful. So fill the gaps where you can. I think that was very well put.
Yeah. And I want to add one thing that you said about about women, right? Women in the space. One thing that we didn't really cover on that is, I'm going to ask you this, Todd. I'm going to ask you. So whenever like the biggest decisions in the house, who has the ultimate say in those decisions? Is it you or is it your wife?
I can't say that.
So a lot of times, right, it's a combination of two, right?
Yeah.
But then you kind of lean towards like, hey, the wife is the one that kind of, we'll call the ultimate shot, right? She's like, okay, we'll do this. Or you're paying on vacation. It's like, I want to go here. And then she's like, no, I want to go there. Okay, well, let's go there, right? So they ultimately have the last say in a lot of the cases, right? So it's the same thing. Like if you're a woman in the space, you can definitely influence other women, and then they can influence their husbands. Hey, maybe we do this multifamily thing. Why should we do it? Well, because here are the benefits, like because of this and because of that. So I think women are powerful, and they can influence, not only other women, but their husbands as well.
Well, and a lot of men, and this is, of course, everything we're saying is generalizing, but a lot of men will, if their wife is on board, they're on board. Like
Yes.
they maybe have already thought about, something like real estate, but maybe they either didn't bring it up or whatever. They're just nervous about it or whatever. But if their wife says, "Hey, let's do this," they're on board. They're like, "Wow, yeah, that sounds great." So I think a lot of men, if their wife is on board with something or if their wife is pushing something, they're gonna say, "Yeah, I think that sounds great." And it's just, again, it's a very small percentage. If you look at the female multifamily investors that are doing syndication, it's a very small percentage of female multifamily, syndicators out there. Now, if you're a female multifamily syndicator that can speak Chinese or Spanish or something like that, you gotta really figure that out and make sure you're speaking to those people. It's speaking to people that really want to hear your message, and that's what you've got to be able to do.
Yeah, you're right. And I think everybody out there that's listening, you really just focus, look at yourself, because every single one of you out there listening has a lot to offer. You sometimes you don't see it that way, but you really do. And so you got to look at every single little advantage that you can use, and you can turn those little advantages into big advantages, right? That could be your competitive advantage, ultimately. But there's a value that you can add. Definitely, you just got to dig a little deeper sometimes, and just sometimes they're right in front of you. You just look right past them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people let fear hold them back. And one thing that as I'm listening to what you say, you had a couple single families. You went out and bought a 32 unit building, right? And you pushed beyond the limitations of these single family houses. And then from there, yeah, you did a passive investment. So it was a great way then to get involved. And then from there, you went and co-sponsored a deal. You found a partner. So your limitation there was, look, I haven't bought a 150, 200, whatever size, 262 or something like that, you said. I haven't bought a big building like this before. So what am I going to do? How can I buy it? And what you did is you found somebody else to partner with to create a win-win there. And now you're able to come in and now you've got experience. So you're able to figure out how to get experience quickly and set yourself apart from the other people who want to do it, but just aren't doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say as well, one of the reasons why I did that passive deal, first of all, I did my 32 unit without knowing anything about syndication, right? I read a couple books, and then I was like, okay, this is enough. Let me go put this to action, right? So that was like my thought process then. And then, the passive deal was like, hey, let's, I just learned about this syndication model. Let me see what this is about. And that was my passive deal. But it was also because I knew that I wanted to ultimately, do my own deals. So I used that as an education for myself. So yes, I invested in the deal, right? But it allowed me to learn how these guys operate the deal. What kind of renovations they're doing, how are their finances looking, why are they doing certain decisions, and why not others. So it allowed me to take a peek behind the scenes, so to speak. But at the same time, I'm getting a return. Right. And then on top of that, I'm getting tax advantages. So it was like, okay, this is a plus and this is a plus. And the reason why I did it is because I can't invest in my own deals anyway through my IRA. Not saying that, you should only do it if you have an IRA, but, that was some of the reasons why I did that. And that kind of led into the next steps. Right. But I think, investing passively is definitely a good opportunity for people to kind of take the next step, I really do.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I've got quite a few investors in every single deal and that are passive, but the reason they're passive is to become active, and they just want to kind of get their feet wet. They want to see how a deal's done, and they use my deals basically in education, which I think is a great idea. Hey, let's take a minute to thank our sponsor, Pine Financial Group. Look, you work hard for your money. Is your money working hard for you? Because of inflation, money sitting idle erodes your wealth. Many investors understand that real estate is a great investment, but may not want the effort or the risk that comes with owning their own property. They want to sit back and have payments, hit their bank account each and every month. Stop eroding your wealth and start building it by asking your money to work for you. You should be earning profits while you sleep, an investment backed by real estate. Pine Financial Group, the leader in hard money lending in Colorado and Minnesota, was recently approved to offer their investment publicly. This investment offer is only for investors in Colorado and Minnesota and is only made through the investment prospectus. Get your copy today. Simply visit www.pineinvestments.com and click to get started. There's a reason why some of the wealthiest people in history invest in loans backed by real estate. Learn more about the risks and returns at www.pineinvestments.com. It's www.pineinvestments.com. I want to invite you to join us at the North Star Real Estate Conference. This conference is September 20 and 21st in Minneapolis, and it's going to be packed full of a ton of great speakers. We've got just a great group of people speaking. And you can look at our lineup on our website, nreconference.com, and sign up there as well. We've got an early bird special. All you need to do is type in early bird, one word, and you can get $100 off. And that's good through August 10th. So make sure you sign up now. Take action. Look, people that take action and value their education are those who are going to succeed. I know there's a lot of free content. My podcast is free. There's all kinds of free content out there, maybe even free meetups that you're attending. But this conference is going to blow your socks off. This is going to be well worth the price, and all the profits go to charity. So it's definitely time to take action. Sign up now. Don't delay, because the prices will go up. But you know what? Every time I attend a conference, I 10x. Actually, I would say I'm more like 1,000x even my investment, 100, 1,000, potentially even more X my investment. I've met so many fantastic people. I've met investors at conferences. I've met potential partners at conference. I've joined mastermind groups because of conferences. So it's a ton of value. You cannot replace it. So check it out, nreconference.com. Thanks a lot. Give us a mistake that you've made, and how have you learned from it?
Yeah, so I would say going back to that 32 unit, because the other properties are still like in the whole period, and so I would say that going back to that 32 unit, it was a good property. It made some good returns when I sold it, but that was the problem. My mistake was that I sold it, right? And so it made sense to either sell or refi at that time. But looking back today, if I could decide all over again, I would have just kept it, because the truth is I'm involved in several other deals now, and this is via syndication. But this was a property where it was myself and a partner, so it was a deal that, hey, we could have held on to this property for another 10, 15 years. It doesn't matter, right? And so looking back, it was a strong producing property. We sold to be able to get all the eggs out. The thought process then was, hey, why do a refi and still leave 25% of the equity in the deal? Why not just take it all and then kind of have that velocity of capital, right? So
yep.
That I wouldn't say it's a mistake, because I think it was a win either way. But I guess personally, it was more of a seller's remorse, But that's going to happen, right? So sometimes you'll get buyer's remorse, sometimes you'll get seller's remorse. Seller's remorse was the situation for me in this case.
Would you have refinanced it, or would you have just kept it and held it?
Yeah, so I would have refinanced it, because I increased the value so much. I would have just done a refi. And the truth is, at my original loan was a bank loan. It only had 20 years. It was amortized over 20 years, and had the opportunity to get a 30-year loan, and then with some IO, and so maybe a 7 or 10 year term,
Yeah.
So, it just made more sense. It makes sense both ways, but hey, it is what it is. And so there's nothing I can do about it now, but
Right.
just it's one of those things where like, hey, if I come across this situation again, I'm really going to think hard about it. Right. I'm going to think about the size of the property. I'm going to think about the location. How far is it from me? If it's, the age of the property, the demographics, there's a lot of things to think about, right? Not just a property, right? Not just the structure. There's a lot of pieces, the debt on it. There's a lot of pieces to it, but yeah, that's one thing that I would say that I learned. So
Yeah, for sure. I think more often than not, it's better to keep the property than to sell it, unless you are using that sale in 1031 and that into another property. Then that might make sense. But I would say the majority of the properties I have sold, I look back and go, man, I wish I would have kept that property.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so you can see it a different way. You can also see it to the way where like, hey, why not sell it? And then just grow into larger and larger properties.
Yeah.
Sure, you can do that. And that was my thought process then. Honestly, that was like, hey, I can sell this. It's a 32 unit, but I want to get into larger properties, right? But the truth is, as I said, the biggest thing on that one, the biggest advantage on that one was that it was myself and a partner. So it wasn't like a syndicated deal to where we had many investors also involved. We could have kept it and improved it more. And the truth is also that the value goes up over time. The value is it might take a little dip down, but over time they tend to go up all the time. And so who knows, but yeah, it is what it is. So for me, I just gotta bite the bullet and just move on.
Yep. Good stuff. For someone who's trying to get to that next level, get to where you're at, what does it take to get there?
Education. I would say education. Know what it is that you're doing. Know what it is that you want. You can't. You cannot over educate yourself either, right? So this say education, but you cannot over educate yourself either. You have to eventually take action on what it is that you want. The second thing I said was focus. You got to make sure that you focus because there's so many different asset classes in real estate, so many different opportunities. Focus on one thing, man. If you like multifamily, go with multifamily. If you like mobile homes, go with mobile homes. Now, once you kind of master it, then if you want to, maybe partner with somebody else, then you can do that. So for me, multifamily is my thing. If I want to get into mobile home parks, which I like, I think mobile home parks are a great asset class. If I want to get into that, then I'm going to find the guy that's a pro at what he does. And then I'll put in money with him, or I'll find an opportunity and partner with him. And he's going to be like the main guy that kind of oversees the operation. That's my thought process. That's my opinion.
Especially in a market like this, where things are tight and, there's not a big learning curve right now. When it's, when it's 2008, 2009, 10, 11, there was a big learning curve. You're allowed to make mistakes, but today you're not really allowed to make many mistakes.
You are not. You're right. You're right on. I mean, in today's market, with the way things are, it's very heated. Real estate is the hot thing right now, but that's also a bad thing, right? So if you're buying right now, guess what? You're buying at the high, right?
Yeah.
So you're not buying at the bottom, right? So you have to be really strategic in how you are going to be moving forward, right? And one of the things that I heard from a good friend of mine, he operates about 3,500 units here in Houston. I live in Houston, here in Houston. And one of the things that he talks about is, man, he was in the market like before the downturn, and he's in Houston. He said that he would rather be in Houston because Houston had his little downturns with, the oil, taking a hit, and also because of the hurricane, a couple of hurricanes that we had. He said he'd rather be an operator in Houston during those times because it brings the best out of you, because there's no choice that you have but to improve upon your skill sets and improve and try to make the property go in the right direction again. And if you're in a market that's always been good, say Dallas Fort Worth, or one of those type of markets that's been on the up all these years, then the market kind of allows you to it kind of forgives you a little bit for some of the mistakes that you can make, right? In a Houston market, it's you have to really have your sleeves rolled up and and get ready to swing, right? You have to take those punches and punch back.
Yep.
Yeah.
And eventually when the Dallas Fort Worth market does go down, there's going to be a lot of people that just aren't prepared, where in Houston, they've been prepared. They've rolled their sleeves up. They understand it. They get it. Is that kind of the thought there?
Yeah, that's his thought process. I mean, it's mainly that he's become a better operator because of it. You know, he's become a better operator. So whenever we do have another recession, because that's inevitable, we don't know when it's going to happen or how bad it's going to be. It's going to happen. He's going to be better prepared with the team mentally. He's going to know what to do, and it's going to help him, you know, in his business moving forward, right? So it just the big overall takeaway is that he's become a better operator because of it.
Is there anything that you are doing right now, knowing that a recession is eventually going to happen? We don't know when, but eventually going to happen. Is there anything you're doing right now with your properties, with your business, with your investors to kind of prepare for it?
Yeah. So, I mean, you hear this a lot, as well as, you know, make sure that you have the proper financing in place. I think that's crucial. I mean, if you're getting a 5-year, even a 7-year term, I think that you're playing with fire there. I think you got to make sure that you are, you know, in the 10 to 12-year range for a term. And if you don't do that, then, you know, it can go bad, right? So make sure you do that for sure. Is one of the biggest things. Everybody talks about being conservative. That's the other thing. You know, you can say that you know, there's no operator out there that doesn't say that their deal is conservative. Everybody's gonna say that they're conservative, but you got to really look at the historicals. How was it whenever it was bad back in 08, 09, 2010? What was the worst that happened then, right? And kind of model your projections and kind of like compare them, right? So what if it shows a 7 cap, you know, back in 09, you know, and today these caps are at 5. And what if I do project a 7 cap on my exit? What happens to my returns? So look at the worst case scenario, and then, you know, try to model it that way, right? So that's kind of the way we try to do things. You know, look at the worst case scenario, and if it makes sense, it makes sense, and then you pull the trigger, right? If it doesn't, then maybe you shouldn't move forward.
I'm so glad you just said that, because there's so many people that say they're conservative, and then I see just these crazy numbers, and I'm going, this is the least conservative underwriting I've ever seen. But historicals, man, just it's as simple as that. Understand where these properties have been, where the markets have been, and know that they could go back to that level. And if the deal still works at that level, then the deal likely works. But if you're not basing it on what's happened, what can happen, then you're not being conservative. I don't care what you say. I see people modeling all kinds of stuff, and I just scratch my head on it. But what you just said there, that's being conservative, basing it on historicals, understanding where the market has been and where it could go. And you're thinking about it. I mean, that's the best thing, is you're putting real thought into it. So I appreciate you saying that 100%.
Yeah, and just to add to another quick point on that, you know, we have a deal that's under contract in Phoenix, right? Phoenix, the last few years, has been having some crazy rent growth. I mean, like, you know, it's right there neck and neck with Las Vegas as one of the highest rent growth year over year, you know, for the last couple of years. You know, and so you'll see 5, 6, 7% rent growth. Will that continue for the next couple of years? I mean, it could. Most likely, it will. You just never know, right? But it can also go down, right? It can also go severely down. So for our deal that we have there, we modeled a 2% rent growth. Nice. That's another thing that you have to look at the historicals. What's the historical rental growth year over year? And, you know, are you capable of continuing that? You know, so we modeled for a 2% rent growth, even though everything else is showing 5, 6, 7%. And we still want it to be more on the conservative side. The numbers still work. The cap rate still works. Okay. The other thing I want to say on that is always, well, this is my thing. This is what I look for, right? So I'm a passive investor. I'm also a general partner. So one of the things that I look for is let's say you have a 100% return in 5 years. So typically the syndicated deals are a 5-year hold, right? Typically, right? Some are a little bit longer, so it could be a little bit shorter, 5 years. So if I tell you that there's a 100% return that you can get back in 5 years, I mean, that's good. That's a fair. That means you're doubling your money in 5 years, right? But if I go deeper into that and I tell you, hey, uh, the out of the cash flow, you're going to get about 20 to 25%, and then on the capital gains, you're going to get the other, 75 to 80%. That's speculation to me, because that is telling me that you are, counting on the end, which you do not know. Only the market determines that. So for me, whenever I look at deals, or I'm modeling my own deals, I try to make sure that, hey, it's a balance, right? It's a little bit more of a balance where it's more 50-50, where 50% is coming from cash flow, and then 50% is coming from the capital gains at the end, right? So that's a more safe investment to me. That's something where you can project it. It's easier to know, because it's easier to deal with day-to-day operations, monthly operations, versus putting all your eggs in the basket at the end of 5 years and hoping for the best. So that's another thing I would say is, a lot of deals that you see out there, they're not like that. They're counting so much on the back end, and the front end it's so very thin.
Yeah, that's very excellent. So listeners, make sure that property cash flows. If you're counting on the appreciation in order to hit your returns, you're speculating, and you're no longer necessarily investing. You're a speculator, and there's a lot of things that can change throughout the course of 5 years, 7 years, whatever that projection is. And if it's 75% of your success is determined on that appreciation, then it's not necessarily a real estate cash flowing investment that we tend to think of. It's a speculation, and that is a lot higher risk than if, as Juan said, is you've got 50%, maybe even more, is based on the cash flow. Now you're at a lot lower risk. We're basing it on, do the numbers work? And here's the thing: if the cash flow works and you've got a hold and we hit a recession, you can keep on holding through that recession and your numbers still work out, right? We still have cash flow, and that's a beautiful thing.
I agree. You're right. I agree. That's so very important for you to focus on cash flow versus speculation.
Yeah,
speculation, because that's what it is. We don't know what's going to happen with the market.
Yep. Well, let's move on. I got a couple more questions to ask you before we wrap up. First of all, what's a favorite book? Business or real estate?
Favorite book? I mean, I think the classics. You're going to hear this all the time, but like Rich Dad Poor Dad is a good one. It's a classic, but out of those two, that one is a good one. But one of my favorite ones out of his is the cash flow quadrant. That was when I kind of, the Rich Dad Poor Dad was like an eye opener for me, but then the cash flow quadrant was like, everything makes sense right here, and that was one of my favorite books. Yeah, as far as business books, I just got finished with a book that was called The Everything Store. That was Jeff Bezos' story, and it was his Amazon story, obviously. Just how he got started, and just how resilient this guy is, and how he, he's so focused, on what he does. And I thought that was a really good book, The Everything Store. Another good one was Shoe Dog. Similar situation with Phil Knight and the founding of Nike, and these guys they just do not back down. Whatever gets in front of them, they just keep pushing. I just found those books really, really good, that are not the classic ones that we hear every single day.
Cool. How do you like to give back?
Yeah. So we attend church. We volunteer there at church. Part of the church, they're here, local community there. And so, that's really the biggest way that we try to get back is by being involved in that, and, every way we can. And also, people that reach out to me all the time, through for real estate, any questions, I always set aside some time to help out. And one of the things that I heard, one time is we always have one arm up, to ask for help. We do. And then we always have one arm down to help others and reach down to bring them up. And so I'm in that situation where I'm always, asking, for help. But then the people that are like, maybe don't have that much experience, I'll always, take some time to help those guys out, because, to me, it's karma as well. If I can
Yeah.
help these guys out, then maybe somebody else can help me, if I have a question or something, so just those kind of things. And every week, I mean, it's not uncommon for me to spend a few hours, just on a phone call, just going through that, and I don't charge anything, so but yeah, those kind of things. I mean, it's just that's what we can do at this moment. But we want to definitely be a little bit more involved, here in the future.
Cool. Awesome. Um, Last question is, what are your three pillars of wealth creation?
Um, as far as like technically, or which, how do you?
You can answer that however you want. See, I don't prepare any of my guests for this one,
Okay,
so a lot of
okay,
them are
good.
a little stumped. But you can say technically, or you can say mindset wise, or however you want, or what does it take? So three
Yeah,
pillars of wealth creation.
yeah. So I definitely think that everything you do has to be for, if you have a family. I think for me personally, it's family. Everything's revolves around my family, right? So everything revolves around that. Um, and then it's also, in addition to that, is, I would say, time. Time is a big one. Is important. Time is wealth, right? So the more that you can get back, then that's wealth to me, right? Um, but then I would say that the other thing is, never stop learning. Keep learning all the time. And I've heard that many times, and I used to think is like, whatever, this is BS. But no, it really isn't, man. You got to keep learning, keep improving upon yourself. Everybody out there can do something to improve, right? So if you're a dad, you can be a better father, right? You can always be a better father. You can't tell me that you're the best father there is out there. You just cannot. There's always something that you can do to improve. If you're married and you're a husband, you can be a better husband.
Yeah.
And just so many different things. And for me, I can improve upon a lot of different things. And just being a better person overall.
Awesome. Last question for you. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah. So they can reach out, through email if they like. Juan at genwealthcapital.com. That's Juan at genwealthcapital.com. They can shoot me an email, or they can find me on social media as well. I mean, I'm all over Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, any one of those social media platforms. You can just shoot me a message, and friend request or whatever, and I'm happy to connect.
And Juan, you said you've got a podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, it's Commit to Wealth. So it's a Commit to Wealth podcast. And yeah, the Spanish one, for those of you that do speak Spanish, or not, but if you want to learn Spanish, then you can check out the podcast as well. But it's going to be called El Cashflow Cafe. So EL Cashflow Cafe. So El Cashflow Cafe. So as I said, it's just a good platform for all of the Spanish speaking audience out there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, and I'll put that on the show notes so the listeners can get to either of the podcasts and then be able to connect with you as well.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Todd. I really do appreciate your time. Hey, I had a lot of fun. It was a pleasure to be on your show. I hope you keep crushing out there like you're doing. And I wish you continued success, man.
Yeah, you as well. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot for joining us on the show. Have a fantastic day. A special thanks to Juan Vargas for joining us on the show. I appreciate his time that he's able to add, and a lot of great value coming from it from both a passive investor and active investor as well. So a lot of good information from that. A couple of things I took from the episode. First of all, he talks about building a team, and we hear that over and over, building a team. And one thing that he said that I thought was fantastic: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Next thing he talks about is building your investor list, and really important. I think a lot of people forget about that, especially early on. You need to be building your investor list all the time, quite frankly, and you're going to go a lot farther
with your investors. Again, that's part of your team is your investor list. So if you've got a bunch of deals, you're trying to get deals and you don't have any money to fund them, well, good luck getting those deals done. Money doesn't just find deals, money finds the people. So make sure you're that person that's always building their investor list. And the last thing he talks about is doing it for a purpose. Doing it for your family, doing it for whatever that purpose might be, but make sure you've got a purpose that you're doing it for and a drive that you're driving, because it's a long road and it might sound like a something you can do quick and hey, I'm motivated and aggressive, but it's a long road. There's bumps and bruises along the way, being an entrepreneur. And if you are going to be successful, you're going to have a clear, defined purpose, and that's going to really help drive you when those bumps do get pretty big and tough. So it does happen. Again, thanks to Juan for joining us on the show. Appreciate his time and a lot of value. I challenge you to take at least one thing from this episode, just one thing, and really focus on that in your next week, and focus on it and make sure you implement it into your business for the next week or 2 or 3 or forever. That's what these podcasts are good for. You can listen to anybody's podcast, including mine, and get nothing out of it, but make sure that you focus on the podcast and getting something concrete out of it. I'm Todd Dexermer. I'm signing off. Make every day a Saturday.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Couple things before we go. Again, go on to our Facebook page, Pillars of Wealth. We'd love to have you on there. Go on to iTunes, give us a rating and review, and subscribe to the show. Also, don't forget, reach out to me if you want any help with potentially growing your business, and reach out to John Stiles to help you buy or sell real estate. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Have a fantastic the rest of the day. And as I say, make every day a Saturday.